Hello everyone, this is Betsy from Agility with Sound. I have produced this chart and this video to explain the literacy needs of older students. I will not be reading all the slides, just pause the video where you need to. This chart summarizes the skills and ways of thinking involved in becoming truly literate. The classic components of phonological awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary and comprehension are all there, but I've broken it down into component parts. This column, Agility with Sound, is about decoding and spelling skills. And this one, Agility with Language, is about comprehension and writing and all that involves. Going across, this first row is about the basic ways of thinking that are a precondition for everything else. The second row is the teachable elements. And the third row is about the practice that is involved to make all this instinctive, automatic, and unconscious thinking necessary to build true competency. And for older struggling readers, this down here, confidence, engagement, and curiosity needs to be front and center of any intervention. So when literacy skills fail to develop, the breakdown is here in this first row. You will see gaps in phonics knowledge, limited vocabulary, and so on, but these are symptoms of the breakdown, not the cause. The question should not be what gaps, but why, after so many years at school and masses of exposure, why these gaps exist at all? How many times has a year six student seen you in words like but, mum, up, us, just, and many other common words? So why do they persist in using A for the us sound, as so many do? Why have they not just picked up that it is you that is most commonly used to make the us sound? The answer is up here. So, phonological awareness is mainly about an understanding of how speech works. When I say the word speech, my mouth goes to four different places, makes four distinct shapes: s, p, e, ch. And when I hear that word spoken, I can slow it down to detect those four sounds in sequence: s, p, e, ch. If a student cannot do that, and it is not automatic, if they cannot detect the individual sounds in a spoken word, they cannot match letters to sounds. There are other understandings too, listed on the screen. This is where it breaks down for most students who have barely begun to read. The starting point for these students is developing a sense of how spoken words work. This understanding is the foundation of literacy. Some kids get it in 20 minutes, some take weeks, but if they can speak, they are all capable of getting it in the end. And there is no point in doing anything else until that understanding is solid. Word chain and our letter tile activities both build this understanding. And so this next bit here is about blending. Most, not all, older kids know how to put three, maybe four-letter words together, but far too many, the only strategy they have as words get longer is a good guess. They need to know how to recognize known bits and how to add them together, how to blend. Word chain teaches this, most especially the fluent blending section. Our fluency sheets, puzzles, and sliders build the same skills in a different way, best used with two students working together to figure out how it all works. There are different ways to break up longer words. For younger students dealing with 2, maybe 3 syllable words, common words from the old English strand of the language, words they already know the meaning of, syllable division seems to work just fine. But to deal with more complex words and words derived from the Latin, Greek, or French strands of the language, students need to move beyond syllables to recognizing common chunks, repeating chunks, and morphemes. And this is what morphemes are about. These words explain the difference. Over here, the A of S, A-S, has just one possible pronunciation in all words. It will always be A. EMB is always emb with a short S sound, whether it is in one syllable or two. These prefixes and suffixes in blue carry a meaning and are consistent. Know any of these elements for one word and you know them for all others. It is much more efficient and reliable than identifying this syllable, this one, holding that in your head, figuring out this syllable, holding that in your head, moving over to this, which looks a bit like blah to me, and then remembering it all and adding it up together. And besides that, these suffixes here and here are masked. Looked like this in English is extremely regular. It is, of course, huge and variable, made up of Old English, Latin and Greek, and multiple other strands that all work differently, have different syllable types, different spelling patterns. But despite all that, it is overwhelmingly predictable. Yes, there are words where it is difficult to see the pronunciation and the spelling pattern. The spelling of the great bulk of these words relates to an ancient pronunciation. Words like said, once pronounced said, and number one, pronounced own like alone until the early 1800s. Thought was once th, our, kt, or something like that. Older students generally enjoy figuring out the ancient pronunciation, making the match, and this is a really effective way of teaching the spelling of these so-called exception words. But of the 1,000,000+ words of English, words like this are just the tiniest handful. These are the sort of words that stump so many older students, the sort of words they encounter at intermediate or secondary school. But recognize the common elements, the chunks that appear in many words, and they are easy to decode. These are the same words as in the last slide. And you can see here in blue, acity, which will always be acity with a stress on the a. There it is again. Osity, osity is always osity, like here. Ocious, with the stress on that O, is always ocious. Here it is again. Ischious is always ischious. There, there, there. And acious is always acious. Then inchal, with the stress on that air. Inchal, 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 inchal. No exceptions. Then the common prefixes here in this pale blue, in, com, ex, com, pre, and so on. And then this double consonant pattern. Here, double C, that has to be an E. Double F, that has to be an O. Double P, that's an A. And so on. Double F, that's an I. know the or here, and here, and here, making or, as it does so often in words like this, and recognizing that this ent tells us that this has to be an e, it always is. There it is again. Know all that, and there is not much left to figure out. There is so much a teacher can teach in here, but that taught knowledge needs to become instinctive, automatic, instant, and unconscious. That takes practice, practice, practice. Readers cannot give their full attention to comprehension until it is. Students who start reading properly get that practice through reading. But other kids, especially those hooked on the guessing strategy, need ample practice outside of reading to develop the level of instant and unconscious recognition they need. They need word chain. And then down here to self-teaching. This is an important concept in the science of reading. The language is huge and variable, and it is simply not possible to teach it all. It works like this. A student comes to the word special for the first time. They think, I know s, p, e, and all, and the context suggests that the word must be special. So that CI must be making the sh sound. Ah, s, p, e, sh, all. And then they see it again in precious and many, many other words. Of course, they will see it in city where it makes s, or exciting where it makes sigh, and realize that it has other pronunciations as well. But as they see more and more words ending in shul like this, or shas like precious, that pattern will lodge in their head to apply instantly, automatically, and unconsciously to words like artificial and superficial, or gracious, delicious, or suspicious. These units are consistent across the language, and word chain builds the instinct to think like this. And then the skills involved can be instinctively applied to figure out these words in a flash. So this slide summarizes everything I've talked about so far. Then over here to comprehension and writing, everything in this column. These factors up here are essential preconditions to comprehension. Students need the instinct to engage with the text, to reflect and contemplate, and the understanding that words have shades of meaning, that may mean different things in different contexts, that there are literal and figurative interpretations. The breakdown is up there for a great many students. But beyond that, research tells us that comprehension breaks down for 4 key reasons. Students cannot decode enough of the words, or decoding takes too much of the reader's cognition. This includes students who read slowly, figuring out words as they go, but also many who are very good at reading badly. By this, I mean students who may sound fluent, who recognize most common words, but who skip over unfamiliar words or have become adept at guessing from initial letters and context. They may or may not make many self-corrections. The overall effort involved in word identification takes attention away from comprehension. Then there are students who do not know the meaning of enough of the words or do not have the instinct or skills to figure them out. Then background knowledge of the topic might be patchy or missing. or students do not understand book language, the sentence structures that are common in print but rare in speech, the conventions of paragraph structure, and all that sort of thing. So, word chain strengthens decoding skills. Vocabulary and background knowledge can be taught, but most of it develops from wide reading and an interest in words and a fascination with the world around them. Curiosity, in other words. But then the language of print, all this here. It is best developed through writing, learning how to construct the various sentence types of print also teaches how to interpret them when reading. Punctuation is an aid to understanding. How does that work? Why does written English use tenses rarely encountered in speech? And what do they imply? And so on. Our sentence book covers all this and much more. But there is another factor that I see constantly, and it relates to this up here. Many do not realize that comprehension takes effort. So many students read the words and some or most of the information sticks, but the instinct and curiosity to visualize, summarize, monitor understanding, activate background knowledge, and so on is simply not there. These are all involved in what Anita Archer calls getting the gist. Inferencing and critical thinking, deep comprehension, is not happening because it demands even more. It demands that the reader goes beyond getting the gist and all it involves to think, why, how, what for, is that true, that reminds me of, and so on as they read. Teachers can teach so much, but to embed it in all students' thinking, for it to become automatic, takes practice, practice, and more practice. Comprehend It, our new digital resource, deals with all common blocks to comprehension. Students, as they read, come to buttons dotted through the text. Press that to hear the author speaking to the reader, guiding them through the thinking required to comprehend. But more than that, the decoding is easy, very easy in the beginning. Pick a level that the student can decode effortlessly so that they can focus on content. In the later levels, the decoding is still basic and should be unconscious, but the comprehension and writing will challenge the most competent students. Unfamiliar vocabulary is supported with explicit clues to meaning, perhaps restating the concept in the next sentence. A probable meaning is easy to infer, and the audio files prompt the reader to look for the clues in the text. Background knowledge that may be missing is provided in the audio files. Understanding of book language is covered in the writing assignments that follow the books and the sentence book. And the requirement to think as students read is covered in those audio prompts. Then the heavily scaffolding writing assignments, writing about your reading from another point of view, requires readers to think deeply about the content, to generate, assess, and organize their thoughts and ideas, the essence of deep comprehension. So teaching how writing works up here teaches how to make sense of it all in the process of reading. There are many reasons to teach comprehension and writing together, summarized on this slide. And then self-teaching down here. applies here too, as this thinking is reinforced by reading. But all students, including struggling students, need as much exposure to text as they can get. So there you have it, all about how words work to decode and spell here under Agility with Sounds, and all about how to build comprehension and writing proficiency here, Agility with Language. All of this, every word on the chart, is essential to build literacy proficiency. Of course, phonics matters. It matters a lot, but it is just one element of the whole.